Welcome to the Sewing Room and our Jobs in Fashion series. Today we're going to talk about the job of merchandiser with my friend and colleague, Hilary Jones. She and I work together at the Gap, and she has had several jobs in the merchandising field over the course of the last 20 years. And she's here today to talk with us about what that looked like. So I'm excited to introduce you to Hilary. And without further ado, here she is. Hi, Hilary. Welcome to the Sewing Room.
Hi, Jennifer. I'm happy to be here.
I'm so glad you're part of our Jobs in Fashion series, and I'm excited to talk to you today about your job. But first, can you tell us what is a merchandiser in the fashion world?
Yeah, so I would say, a merchandiser is describes a person who, really works with the product and executes strategies around the merchandise. Sometimes it's used interchangeably with the word buyer. And I would say the merchants are product pickers. They work closely with design and other cross-functional partners to really come up with the assortment for the season, to try to make sure that the product is commercially viable, right? So they're really the voice of the customer, and making sure that what product is put forth in the store is, something the customer is going to want to buy. It's a nice mix of creative, because you work really closely in product development and with the design team, as well as tech and the production folks. And then there's a financial component of driving the business and really running a business, working closely with the planning and the inventory management teams, and developing an assortment that is going to meet the customer needs and ultimately make a profit for the company.
That's awesome. That's a great explanation, and definitely what I thought it was.
Yeah, I mean, and now there's even more different levels of expertise now, where you'll have product merchandisers or website merchandisers or visual merchandisers, right? So it's used in those other channels of business too.
Right, because there's so many more channels of business than there used to be. It's not just a standalone store. It could be a series of stores, and then also online business and website business as well, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Cool. So where do you currently work, and what position do you hold?
So I am back at Gap Inc. I am working in Banana Republic as their women's site merchandiser. So managing that business. So I've definitely come full circle. This is my third time at Gap. So I know we'll talk more about my road to getting there, but that's where I am now.
So what do you mean by site merchandiser?
Well, so the website merchandiser, I've worked in this capacity in a couple different ways, right? So if you think about maybe more someone that's focused on stores and product development versus on the website. And I've worked in this role in a couple of ways where I've had P&L and responsibility to the business and the buying side just for the website. And I've also worked, like in my current capacity, in collaboration with the product merchandisers that are focused more on the assortment for what they'll call omni or global. And then we'll make sure that all the things that are in the line, in the global line or the omni line, show up on the website, and really responsible for the navigation, where the product shows up, how it's put together. So it's similar in some respects to what a visual merchandiser might do in a store, to using the website as our store, and how it shows up and how it's delivered to the customer at that point.
That's really fascinating. How did you get started as a merchandiser?
Well, it was really my first job out of college. I was a merchandise coordinator at the Gap in the 90s. I'll date myself. and I came up, I was a poli-sci major at UCSB, and I'd worked every summer and every holiday in the store, and, you know, working on the sales floor. And so I knew I liked retail and fashion. And I'd done an internship in Washington, D.C. in college. And at that point, when I came back, I knew it was not the right fit for me. So when I graduated, I moved to San Francisco and I started looking for jobs, you know, at Levi's, Macy's, Gap. Like there were a lot of opportunities in this world, and that's really where I started.
Can you tell us a little bit of your about your journey within the company and how many places or jobs you held before you're in your current position?
Yeah, it was, I mean, the beauty of a large company is that I've had a number of different opportunities along the way. And so, you know, starting really at the ground floor as a coordinator, schlepping sample boxes, you know, and just putting together faxes, things like that. We were definitely, you know, learning from the ground up. And really my first promotion was into the production side of things. So I worked on the manufacturing side for women's denim. So it was a great job. It really taught me about all the nuts and bolts of what goes into making a garment, how long it takes, how much, you know, if you change the thread color or a button, there's a cost involved, either financially or in terms of delivery. I was able to tour factories. And at that time, it was still all domestic. You know, in the south of the US, I would go and get to visit these manufacturing plants and see how the garments were being put together. So I always look back at that as something that made me a better merchant. Like I really understood how the actual garment was being made and how long it took. And then I moved into merchandising at that point, maybe 3 years later. And I came through Gap Kids, Gap Baby, I was in women's. So it was really, I never felt like I was sort of stuck in a job. There was always an opportunity to do something different. And then I worked that was on the product side on this as a store merchant. So really focused on product development. And then it wasn't until I settled down and had a family that I moved into merchandising on the e-com side. And I've been doing that the last 10 plus years.
Very cool. What does a typical day look like in the job of a merchandiser?
So I would say it really varies a great deal. You know, this is something I'm sure, you know, you've heard before, that if the only thing you can count on in retail is change, you'll never be bored. I would say you're generally juggling 3 or 4 seasons at the same time, right? So I might be watching sales right now for spring and responding and reacting to business as it's happening, whether we need to move something to markdown or we need to move it off the site or make an adjustment based on a customer review. Meanwhile, I'm also preparing for summer launch, where the product we know is already on the water and it's on its way. It's about to hit the DC. Do we have the right imagery? Is it ready for store sets? So that might just be a few months out. Meanwhile, we're actually buying fall. So fall is, you know, is now 6 months away or 7 months away. And we're working with those manufacturers, landing the line, making sure that the investments are set and writing up those purchase orders. Again, I'm not necessarily, you know, the merchant isn't necessarily writing the purchase orders, but working with the cross-functional team that needs to hit a deadline to get the purchase order in to make sure that the product is made at the right time and shipping at the right time. And then meanwhile, we're also then preparing to see holidays. So, you know, the last season. So design is working furiously to finish up the samples and get ready to present their next line. So, it's hard to say what's in a typical day, but generally, you know, you're sort of standing in current business and future business each day.
Wow, yeah, that sounds like a lot of information to take in and process, and also to like balance and juggle all those different seasons at one time and try to make it work for the business as well as, you know, the visual aspect of it all.
Yeah, I would say, you know, one of the things in my current role, and this happened in past merchandising roles, but what I love about the e-com business now is I feel like I'm talking to the customer every day, just in the sense that I can see what they're buying, what they're clicking on, you know, every day. And so we can respond to that, those cues to change the trajectory of the business. So if dresses are getting the highest clicks and, you know, the highest sales, then we'll make sure that we show more dresses in our top navigation, or make sure that there are email ideas that are being put forth to let the customer know what we have in terms of that assortment. Or if we see in our search terms that the customer is looking for skirts or skirts or shorts, they're really getting set for summer, maybe earlier than we expected.
That's good to, I mean, it's good to hear that you feel like you're talking to the customers, because I think sometimes customers may feel a little manipulated by that experience. However, you are responding to what they're saying they want. So I think that's a really interesting perspective to see it from the business, the behind the scenes side of it.
Yeah. Yeah.
What is the role of a merchandiser in a larger company versus a smaller company?
Well, I would say, let's see. I mean, similar and similar. I would say in a larger company, the merchandiser tends to be sort of at maybe this hub of the wheel for product and assortment, and deciding what the line will look like for each season, but working very closely with all the cross-functional partners, whether it's design, manufacturing, you know, inventory management, marketing, visual, the website. So there are, you know, because coming up when the company was smaller, and in my training and in my early years, there was much more of a hands-on approach. We didn't have all those built out teams. And so I was running my own open to buy and working, you know, the financials and making sure that the receipts were coming in at the right time in order to fuel sales for the next month. And then also we were going to do, you know, working very closely with product development and sitting in on every fitting, and negotiating with factories on price and cost. Right now there's a manufacturing team, you know, that has that, there's sort of more of a passing of the baton, I would say, in a larger company versus maybe a smaller company. You really have to be able to kind of put on all those hats.
Do you still go to fittings?
No, not anymore. Now that I'm on the e-com side, or at least in this role, I'm not doing it. I have been a site merchandiser before that still was responsible for product development. Maybe before, where if I had a category of business that didn't already exist. So, for instance, when I was in Gap, I started in, at one point had Gap Maternity as a responsibility before it went into stores, right? So we were only doing it as an exclusive online business. And because I had product development experience, then I worked closely there with the fit techs, like you back in our early days. And, but not in this capacity anymore. That definitely is happening on what they call the global side of product development. There's one line developed for the, you know, the whole company, and then we just pull off of that and make sure that it shows up on the website.
Cool. Are you involved in any photo shoots or fashion shows?
Yeah, so I mean, I would say because my career sort of has this split where I had been on the product development side of merchandising in those early years, and then in the last 10 years moved digital and online, I am, you know, less involved in that. But definitely as a merchant, you would be responsible to make suggestions for what would be put onto a photo shoot, working closely with styling and marketing, as they get ready for a campaign shoot. And then obviously in the e-com side too, we would prepare, special photo shoots for a lookbook, let's say, on the site, and be picking product that would go off for a shoot. And then also in those early days at Gap, every season we would go to New York, we would fly to meet the designers, and they would do a full-blown, fashion show.
I remember.
Walking the aisles of the Gap headquarters in Chelsea. But it seems like that's not happening as much anymore. Yeah.
That's kind of sad. I really, really enjoyed those fashion shows, and seeing Lorianne, who was our fit model, in the fashion show. That was so fun.
Yes, that's right. I know they had music. Those were fun days.
Well, I know the last couple of years have been challenging, but are you still traveling for business at all?
Not in my e-commerce capacity, right? Like, so the original, this was a great job. I would say my merchandising early years, it was a great job in my 20s, where we would go to New York 4 times a year to see the line. Then we would go to Asia thereafter to place the line, to negotiate with factories and meet with our agents. We would also do store trips. I got to go on the jet a couple times to see a store or see a factory. We would go and visit new areas that we wouldn't normally shop, just to shop the competition. So if we would go to New York normally for work to see the line, we would shop there, but maybe we would do a special trip to go to Boston or to go to, Minneapolis, just to have a different experience of what was out there in the competition, and visit stores, but also visit Gap stores to meet with store managers and to talk to them about what they're hearing on the sales floor for, different customer base.
That's awesome. Thank you. So I think that covers all of my questions. Do you have anything else you'd like to share about being a merchandiser?
Sure. I think, like I mentioned, I feel like I've been very lucky in my experience with this big company, because I've been able to manage a number of different types of business, whether it's Gap, Athleta, now Banana Republic, and have a lot of variation in my career. And then I've also, I've left the company. What they call me is a boomeranger, where I've gone back and forth along the way. And so I've worked at smaller companies and startups, as well as family-run businesses, and not just in apparel. I tried the furniture, and home business. It was very timely in those years. I started working for Restoration Hardware right at the point when I bought a new house, and then I went back, 10 years later, I worked at a company called Scandinavian Designs when I was ready for a remodel. No, but I would say that, that's been the beauty of the company, is that I've been able to have a lot of different experiences, and, and as a merchant, there's definitely, I think I touched on this a little bit, that there's a right brain, left brain combination that has also kept the work challenging and fun for me, because I think I lean a little bit more on the creative side. I love the marketing part of it. I love the storytelling that you can do for each season. But then there's also the financial component, where I'm definitely, goal oriented, and I like to hit a sales plan and see, how well we can do from a profitability standpoint. So that part has been fun too.
Well, it sounds like merchandising is a really diverse job to have, and really fascinating. Thank you so much for being here today and for talking with us about your job in the industry, and have a wonderful day, Hilary.
Thank you so much. This was great. I really enjoyed the time.
Thank you.